first speed day. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Sarah Starr. I'm the very proud principal of Longview School, and I'm excited to see a lot of Longview families joining us this evening, as well as families from other schools within MCPS. So we're very happy to welcome everyone here today about a very important topic, which is self-direction and self-direction services. I know I'm excited to learn this evening as well on ways that we can support our students in their transition. And this is a time to think about, even if your child is, I have a 7-year-old, but it's important to always be thinking about these things. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to Miss Adriana Friedman.
Hi, good evening, everybody. We're so happy to be here tonight together to talk about what we're going to do is provide an overview of DDA Self Directed Services and explain what that is. Before we start our session, I would like our panel tonight to introduce themselves. My name is Adriana Friedman. I'm a transition specialist. I work at a transition services office, and I support several schools, all the extensions high schools, as well as Stephen Olds and Longview School. Carly?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Carly Fratangelo. I'm a transition specialist with MCPS, and I'm also a support broker.
And Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel Greenberg. I work for an adult service agency helping adults with disabilities find employment, and I'm also a support broker.
Okay, and Sherry?
Hey, I'm Sherry Dexter. I am a parent. My son Timmy got done with Longview last year. So I'm about 1 year into self-direction and learning as we go. So looking forward to talking to everybody tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So as I said, we're going to talk tonight about self-direction. We have a couple of people that are going to talk. This is our agenda, our focus for tonight. We're going to discuss what are self-directed services. We're also going to discuss the very critical role of a support broker in the process of self-directing your services. And then we're going to have a parent share her perspective on her journey with her son through self-direction. And then we will close with questions. We'll also have a evaluation at the end where we would like you to please complete the Google form, including your name and any questions that you may have. When we do the questions sections, we are going to ask that we keep our questions general and not specific to the student. If you have specific questions, please contact your school TST or myself or anybody on this panel with questions specific for your child. So if you have questions along the presentation, please include them in the chat and then we will address them at the end.
A link to the slides, tonight's slides, have also been added to the chat box.
Right. So if you'd like to have your own version and follow along, please check that out. The link in the thing, that the slide set that we will be sharing also will have the links to a lot of resources tonight that you can further explore and learn more about self-directed services. Self-directed services. So self-direction, we're going to talk about what it is tonight. But before we do, I want to explain that with DDA, many of your son or your daughters will be going to school, Montgomery County Public Schools, until the age of 21. Well, they'll exit and they may be eligible for funding from the State of Maryland Developmental Disabilities Administration, also called DDA. So they will be receiving funding, if eligible, for some type of adult service program. You have a choice. Once you're deemed eligible for the funding, you will have a choice of what type of adult services you might want. You will choose between a self-directed or a traditional day. So before we start this presentation on self-direction, we are not endorsing one choice over the other. We're not endorsing self-direction. Tonight's presentation will focus on explaining what it is, but we also have all of our families explore all the options, including traditional day program. So under a self-direction model, if you chose this model for adult services, self-direction promotes personal choice and control over the delivery of your services for your child, your son or daughter, and budget. The participant or their designated representative, which could be you as a parent or legal guardian, assumes the role of the employer and the budget authority responsibilities as the employer of record. The employer authority responsibilities include decision-making authority to recruit, hire, train, and supervise the individuals who will furnish the services. So we're going to talk about that tonight as well. So you would be an employer on record, you would be hiring your own team. And the budget authority responsibilities include decision-making authority over how the Medicaid funds in a budget are spent. So the self-directed option, remember, is you're recruiting, you're employing, you're paying, and you're training your caregivers, and you're designing the model of your vision for services for your child. We're going to go way into depth on all of these areas. When you have a choice between that and traditional model that DDA offers. These are services provided by various private nonprofit organizations within DDA that are certified or licensed within the community. So the provider in this model assumes all responsibility as the employer on the record. The clients are assigned staff that the provider hires within their agency, and the agency is responsible for recruiting, employing, paying, and training the caregivers to provide your child the services. So traditional model can be center-based, it can be community-based, or a combination of both. Services may be dictated by the agency's hours of operations. So we're going to talk about those are your two choices. Now, one thing to remember and to know is that if you choose self-direction and for some reason it's not working out, or a new program enters, or you learn about a program, or an opening comes for a program that you've been on a wait list, you can change. You are not locked into one model versus the other. You can change. You have an option to change. It's not an overnight process. You have to find an agency that has an opening. Or if you're changing from an agency to self-direction, you have to develop a plan and get a budget approved. So you're just not locked into one model or another. No size, it's not a one size fits all. So you have options, you have choices, and you can make changes. So it's very important as we present tonight to keep that in mind. Tonight's presentation on self-direction services, as well as traditional day, DDA refers to, and you will work with what's called a coordinator of community services provider. You will often hear this referred to as your CCS provider. These are agencies that are contracted by DDA, and they serve in a role of a resource coordinator. One of their primary roles is to develop what we call a person-centered plan, and that will be developed for anybody entering into DDA for adult services. DDA refers to this, as often you'll hear the lingo, the good life. So under the person-centered plan, we have this wheel demonstration here. And in the person-centered plan, as you're thinking about adult services for your child, you want to think about all of these areas, and these are areas that are included in that person-centered plan. So whether you're developing a self-direction plan or a plan to go traditional day, you're going to look at your child's personal strengths and assets in the following areas. You're going to think about what relationships do they have, what's important to them, family relationship, friend relationship, caregiver relationship, employment. Is our vision for them to work in a paid or volunteer employment? Communication, that's so important. What communication strategies are we using, or assistive technology? You're going to think about everything in terms of that area. Lifelong learning, what adult learning classes are there? Montgomery College also has some special needs classes, and lifelong learning in terms of recreational interest classes. What level of community involvement will your son and daughter be having? What will their day-to-day life look like? The financial aspect, will they be receiving SSI, income from work? There's all kinds of things to consider in this plan. Home and housing, where will they live? Who will they live with? What supports will they need in the home? And then health and wellness. So this is kind of like the wheel of areas when you get involved in developing your personal centered plan with DDA. So you want to think of all of these things, all of these strengths and assets, but you also want to really recognize the support needs, because this all ties into funding for that plan. And you'll also hear a very important words, but DDA also says, what is your child's meaningful day? So that good life, that meaningful day. So you want to consider all of those factors when you develop a plan with your CCS provider. So self-direction really, self-directing really empowers the person by expanding that degree of choice and control over what their services and supports they're going to receive. It is going to be your vision, your child's, your son or daughter's vision, your input on what that plan is going to look like. It gives people decision-making authority and lets them take responsibility as a legal employer for managing their services with the help of a team that they select. And that's important, a team that they and you select under the self-direction model. Self-direction means people decide what they want to achieve, how they want to live their lives, and what supports they want, and what will meet their needs. So this really shows you a big picture, which would go into their self-directed plan. So this is kind of a nice graph image of a path to a self-directed life. Here you start with the plan development process. You know, we're thinking about what is that plan? What is that person-centered plan? Who are my teams? Who are the key people on my team? What are my goals? You know, employment goals, independent living goals, our support needs. What are all those goals? And then you meet with your CCS provider and support broker if you choose, and we'll talk about that. That's an option to begin a budget and a development process with DDA, and you create a budget, and then you go to flag number 3, which is actually implementing that plan. So what that plan is going to look like, your budget is approved, and it's going to be involving family, friends, work, community involvement, and so forth. So we talked about how under self-directed model, you choose your team. So the team, the number one person is going to be the individual, the consumer who is who has the DDA funding, and who is your son or your daughter who's receiving the services. That's the number one person in the team. And then it's going to be the coordinator of community services, your CCS provider. That's often referred to CCS. Remember, they're contracted agencies with DDA. You will all have a CCS person as your contact. And then it will also include a financial management and counseling services, often also referred to as FMCS agency. DDA contracts with 2 agencies that will pay your team, your caregivers or your workers. It will also have an advocacy specialist. It may have your employees that you hire, providers, vendors, and contractors. Some agencies allow you to buy a day in of services. So your child might be able to go to an agency 1 day a week, and then you would pay a vendor fee within a self-directed budget. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then last but not least is a support broker. And the next couple of presentations tonight are going to really explain that role of the support broker. And the reason being is that this is very overwhelming. It's overwhelming if you know it. It's overwhelming if you're just hearing it. So allow yourself to be exposed, to get all this information, but ask questions, but know that you have a whole team of people to support you through this process. So everything you hear tonight will feel overwhelming. And we want you to know that there are key people that can help you navigate self-direction if that's your choice, or help you navigate traditional day if that's your choice. Every school has a TST, a transition support teacher at the school, and you have a CCS provider. If you don't have one now, you will be assigned one. And we also have the most important role, one of the most important roles of a support broker. So we're going to start with the the next piece of this presentation to talk about some of the key things that the support broker can do. And then we will move into our next speaker, who will talk about creating activity schedules and budget and funding. Rachel.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming out tonight to learn about self-direction. So this is a very small definition for what a support broker is, because in the end, it's going to be an agreement between the support broker and the participant, or as we call the employer. But a support broker is someone who understands what's out there and helps the participant, or as I said, the employer and the participant's family navigate the self-directed world. They're there to help you understand the budget, understand what's out there, someone to lean on, a listening ear. Next slide, please. So a support broker can help with many, many, many things, not just what is listed. Again, it's important to note that it's an agreement between the support broker and the participant, but some things they can do. They can recruit staff, see who's out there, go on certain websites, find people who want to be interviewed for the position. They can help with hiring, help with the participant with interview questions. If the participant is not able to ask them themselves, maybe the support broker will do it for them. Firing staff, tricky, tricky, tricky. Not something anyone really wants to do. If the participant is more comfortable with the support broker doing it, that is a potential role. Advocating for the participant, but also helping to understand that self-advocacy and self-determination is extremely crucial. Putting together participant schedules, which someone is going to later talk more about, and finding activities for the participant, and also helping with the budget, helping you understand the budget, helping you place things in the budget so everything makes sense. Next slide, please. So what else is a support broker? They are an advocate. They are there for the participant and the family and their needs, whether it's day-to-day activities, medical needs. They're there to help you. They're a counselor, a listening ear. If you need some help, you can talk to your support broker. They're an advisor. They might advise you on certain programs that are out there for your adult child that might be good for them. And they're a planner. They help plan the schedules, plan their activities, volunteerships, employment, whatever the participant is looking for. Next slide, please. Now, so many questions to ask a support broker. You want to make sure that not only do they have the experience, that they know the system, but that they're in it to help you. So to explain your understanding and beliefs about self-determination and self-direction, you want to make sure they know about self-direction, really important, but also self-determination, that the participant can make decisions, maybe with some assistance, but they should be the ones making the decisions. Describe your knowledge and or experience with the service system for people with developmental disabilities. This will help you find someone who understands DDA and the services they provide. How would you describe your communication style and strengths? Every person communicates a certain way and wants to be communicated to a certain way. So you might want a support broker who communicates a certain way. And describe your knowledge and experience with person-centered planning. Extremely essential so they can be a part of the PCP, the person-centered plan, and know what to put in it. Next slide, please. And just some other questions. Describe any experience or training you have in helping people to learn new things. We want to make sure that the support broker will help the participant lead a meaningful life. That means learning new things, whether it's, again, with activities or volunteerships or with employment. Describe your beliefs about supporting an individual's right to make choices and take risks. Tell us what experience you have supporting individuals with developmental disabilities to understand choices and make the best choice for themselves. It is always really awesome to find out someone's experience, but one thing to note is there are a lot of people out there entering the field who don't have as much experience but are passionate and want to learn. And another one, a big part of the support broker's job has to do with supporting me to find, hire, train, manage, and fire people and companies I will pay to provide me with services and supports. Describe your experience in managing people, employing people, and arranging for things to get done. You want to make sure that your support broker is not only comfortable with these things, but knows how to do them. A support broker is someone who's on your side and wants to take the weight off of you. Next slide, please. All right, there are many, many ways a support broker can help find staff. First, care.com is a great website for caretakers to either find jobs or for the people who need caretaking to look for people. Indeed is great, and the support broker can work with the participant to come up with a great job description for staff. Job boards, whether it's at a place of worship or at a restaurant or at a college, it's great to see people looking for work, as well as putting up the advertisement that the participant and the support broker came up together, and see what you get. Facebook is great. Facebook has so many groups of people looking for jobs, but another thing I would want you to look for is self-directed services, self-directed service groups for parents, because they might say, I have a staff member who's looking for some hours. Is anyone looking for staff? And finally, networking, professional networking and personal networking. You never know who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. Next slide, please. How can they help with hiring staff? A support broker can help participants hire staff by creating interview questions and helping participants interview potential staff members. It is up to the participant how involved he or she wants their support broker to be in this process. So remember, it is up to the participant because they are the employer. It is up to them if they even want the support broker involved in hiring staff. But if they do, maybe they just want help coming up with interview questions. Maybe they want the support broker to just sit in the interview. Maybe that makes the participant more comfortable. And maybe the participant just wants the support broker to actually conduct the interview. You never know. It's all dependent on the participants, their wants, and their needs. Next slide. So when I ask, what do you want your staff to be like? There's no real cut answer because everyone is different. Every participant is going to look for different qualities for their staff. Every participant is different and has varying needs, whether it's communication needs, medical needs, recreational needs, emotional needs. But that being said, each participant will want different things from their staff, and a support broker can help you hire the people that best fit your needs. Going back to that slide, there's so many places to look to hire people that might fit the participant's needs. Next slide. But there are some things that I think are non-negotiables. You want them to be on time. If your adult child gets a job, you of course want them to show up, so you'd want your staff to be with them. Or if they have an activity, you'd want them to be able to take them, trustworthy. We all know that staff are going to be entering your homes. Your homes are your sanctuaries, and you're going to be sharing private information about yourselves and the participant. So you want to make sure that you can trust the staff with this private information. Reliable, that goes along with punctuality. They're going to show up. You know, if they can't make it a certain day, they're going to let you know well in advance. Availability, does their schedule match your schedule? If you need mornings and evenings, are they able to do mornings and evenings? And experienced, like I said before, I think that you can find excellent staff who doesn't have that much experience if they are willing to do the work and learn. But some of you might want someone who has more extensive experience in the special needs world. Next slide, please. So when it comes to training staff, you can train them on so many different things. So it all depends on the agreement between the support broker and the participant. But some examples of things to be trained on are supported employment. For example, as a support broker, I tell my families that I can help train their staff on supported employment because I have over 6 years of helping adults with disabilities find and maintain employment. You can help train on self-determination and make sure that the staff is helping the individual be as independent as possible and to self-advocate. You can train on communication styles. This is how they like to be communicated, how they like to be communicated, or the participants' communication style, whether it's the fact that they use an iPad for communication or sign. You could also train them on medical needs. There's so many different trainings you can provide staff. Next slide, please. So some trainings that DDA will reimburse for, every staff will be reimbursed for CPR, first aid, and AED. And if you dispense medication, the staff will be reimbursed for a MedTech certification. Next. So can staff have benefits? That is up to you, the participant, the employer. Staff can be offered benefits. The benefits would come from the participant's budget, which you're going to learn a little bit more about later. A support broker can help you navigate this and help you add benefits to the budget. Some examples of benefits are health insurance. Sometimes you can say, I will cover all the health insurance as long as it's set in the budget. But some families will say, I'll put $100 a month towards health insurance so I can have the staff be paid a higher rate. Sick leave, just so everyone knows, everyone gets sick. So it's important for the staff to know that they have that benefit, and PTO. Next slide, please. What are some activities that can be approved in the budget? It's a tricky way of saying things, but if it's therapeutic, it most likely will be approved. So as you see, painting, swimming, therapeutic riding, and therapeutic fitness activities. A lot of things can be approved in the budget as long as it shows that it helps the participant grow and it's fitting their therapeutic needs. Next. So you might ask, yeah, I want my adult son or daughter to do said activity, or my adult son or daughter wants to do this activity. Where am I going to find it? First off, Facebook is a great resource. Facebook has amazing listings of events going on near you, whether they be meetups, whether they be fairs, festivals, you name it. And you will also see how many people are going in case the participant doesn't like to be around crowds. You can also go to your county's self-directed page, and something that's happening in recent days is people are putting on activities for self-directed participants to participate in together, because they know that that's a huge need for them to have things to do during the day. We have meetup.com, which is great because they are activities based on what the person wants to do, and they are already scheduled. All you have to do is look at it and click attend. Potomac Community Resources offers fantastic classes for people with developmental disabilities. Spirit Club is fantastic. It offers one-on-one training and fitness classes for groups for people with disabilities. Keep your participant healthy, and Montgomery College has the Challenge program, which provides classes catered to adults with disabilities. All of these resources will help you get an idea of what kind of activities the participant can participate in and how to fill up their schedule. Next slide, please. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of the budget. When you are considering self-directed for your family member, the first thing, really, in any service, whether you're looking at traditional or self-directed, you really want to start thinking about, what does my child's ideal day look like? What does their ideal week look like? And have an idea of what are they doing from day to day. Would you like them to be working, whether that's volunteer or in paid employment? Would you like them to be involved in grocery shopping and cooking? Do you want them to be going to the gym? Are they with family? Are they having some downtime where they're just watching TV and hanging out and relaxing because that's what they like to do? It's really important to have a sense of what this might look like when you go in to DDA services so that you can really advocate and have an understanding of what services you're looking for. So this is one example of a weekly schedule. And this, it's going to be so incredibly different for each family. So please don't feel tied to anything. I'm just showing an example of what a schedule may look like. So this is an example of an individual who has services Monday through Friday from 9:25 to 6 p.m. Those hours are going to be dependent on what times of day the individual needs services. It's going to depend on how many hours the individual has approved in their budget. Next slide. And this is another example of a weekly schedule. This is just to highlight where the individual might have, you'll see at the top, it says daily schedule for CDS, PS, and respite. Those are terms that you'll hear in the DDA world. CDS refers to community development services. PS refers to personal supports. And then there's respite. So this schedule shows that the individual has personal supports and community development services. And I will break down for you what each of those services mean. But here you have an example of someone, what's happening during those hours and what the staff responsibility is during those hours. So you see this schedule looks completely different from the schedule before, just to highlight that you can really individualize this and tailor the schedule to what your child needs. Next slide, please. So this is just an overview of what the path to self-directed may look like. As Adriana shared, this process is really overwhelming. It's a lot. It's a lot when you're coming from the school system and you're entitled to so many services, and now we're looking at an eligibility framework. And so we're also dealing with different timelines and different pieces, moving pieces that need to come together. But I don't want to overwhelm, but I do want to give you a sense of what this may look like. So we start in the pre-planning phase, and I have there, it says 120 days prior to plan implementation. For students who are exiting from MCPS, your plan implementation date will be July 1. Now we know that DDA is a little bit behind. That may look a little bit different. And so your transition support teacher is walking you through, different scenarios and what that might look like there. But in the pre-planning stage, so this is around March-ish, prior to starting in self-directed, you're starting to think about your PCP, your budget, and your weekly schedule. So really you're starting to say, what do I want my child's week to look like? What do I want them to be doing from day to day? You're reaching out to your CCS, making sure your documents are completed. And this is where you're asking questions, just like you all are doing. You're attending this session, you're kind of getting to know what's out there, what are your options. And then we get into the PCP and budget development 60 to 90 days prior to plan implementation. So April, May, somewhere around this time frame, we are writing the official PCP. We're having the official PCP team meeting and drafting the budget and the PCP. Now, when you work with your CCS and the CCS is writing the PCP, you are letting your CCS know whether you intend to go into the traditional model or the self-directed model. Once you choose the self-directed model, you'll look at creating the budget. Now, everything that is in your PCP, so the services that you discuss oh, my child, what my child will need personal supports. Well, how many hours? You're going to talk about that. Oh, my child will need community development services. How many hours? You're going to talk about that. Once you come together and it's entered into the system, your budget amount will directly reflect those services. So, many years ago, it used to be that you would get a budget allowance and it was like, you just got this sum of money. It works differently nowadays, where the services, your budget amount directly reflects the services that are in your PCP. So you're writing the PCP. And during this time frame, the HRST is a health risk screening tool, will be completed with the CCS. And if your child has a behavior plan, this is also written and updated along with the PCP and the budget so that it can go to DDA for approval. The last step is to modify and approve the plan. So 30 to 60 days, you're looking, late May, early June. You are hopefully hearing back from DDA that your PCP and your budget was approved. And you'll also, during this time, you'll be applying for the waiver that you will be, you're essentially saying to Medicaid, here's our plan, here's our budget, we want to apply for X waiver. It's likely going to be the community supports waiver or the community pathways waiver. You'll apply for the waiver with support from your CCS, and any final revisions to the PCP and the budget are made and resubmitted to DDA. DDA, something to keep in mind is that whenever you submit, and I know, I'm going to stop. I know that what I'm saying might sound like a foreign language. I do recognize that, but I have found that over the years, and I think the other transition specialists on the call with me would agree that the more you hear it, the more it sinks in, and it really does take just hearing it over and over again. So I want to pause and just say, if you are so overwhelmed with this information, it is okay. It will be fluid. You will have support, and we will get there. And I will be breaking this down a little bit more on the next slides. But once your PCP and budget is submitted to DDA, DDA comes back. They have 20 days to come back and either say, yes, we approve this plan and budget, or no, we don't approve it, and here's why. Here's what you need to do to fix it. There may be a significant amount of back and forth between you and DDA making corrections as far as what they want to see. So it is important to get that initial plan submitted so that with the back and forth and the changes, you can be ready to go by July 1. Next slide, please.
Yes, and before we move to the next slide, for some of the parents that just joined us a little bit late, PCP stands for Person-Centered Plan, and that's what your budget and everything is going to be around. So I just wanted to reiterate that PCP is Person-Centered Plan.
Thank you. So when we get into preparing a budget, I did not do a slide for the PCP, and the reason being is that the PCP will look, the process will look very similar to an IEP. And I really wanted to take the time to focus on the budget because that's the aspect that's going to feel very new and very different in self-directed. So when you're preparing a budget, again, that budget allowance, so the amount of money that you get from DDA directly reflects the services that are outlined in your PCP. The budget should be a collaboration between the CCS, the support broker, the individual, and any team members. But the individual, so the participant or your child or the designated representative, so the parent in many cases, has the ultimate budget authority. I say that to say that every CCS operates a little bit differently. as far as how they will want to work with you to implement a PCP, and how the budget will be written. Every support broker will work a little bit differently as well. But ultimately, it is the participant and you as the parent to support your child to have that ultimate decision. Okay, I want to empower all of you to know that that you and your child guide your services and make those ultimate decisions. So knowing that, a great thing to know is that the budget can be modified throughout the plan year. Okay, so if you write this budget and you say, my child is going to, we're going to set aside this amount of money for 6 swim classes, and we're going to set aside this amount of money for art classes. And then you get to the registration date and your child's like, nope, I'm not going, or, oh, the class is full. You have the ability to move that money to a different area of your plan. So it's not that that money is lost. And your budget amount can also change from year to year. So there used to be some concern about losing money if it was not spent. That is not, that is no longer an issue, no longer a concern. So it really, really does reflect what your child needs during that PCP year. So 1 year, your child might be, you know, you want to work just on the personal supports and community development. So there's a budget amount for those things. And then the next year you say, you know, my child has had some behaviors come up. We're having some difficulties accessing things in the community because the behaviors are keeping us from leaving the house. So maybe we need to get a behavior consult and have a plan implemented. That can be added to your budget. Maybe we want to work on some employment and we want to work with an agency as a vendor and get some employment services going. That can be added to your budget. So your plan amount can change from year to year depending on what services are needed. Next slide, please. Okay, I am going to do a very brief show of what the budget looks like. We could spend hours going over the budget, but I did want to just show very high level overview so you have a sense of what it might look like. So the top row is really just what the top of the budget looks like. I put a square, a green square around it for you to see when we open the budget sheet at the very top. You'll have a red arrow there that says enter approved DDA budget allocation from the DSA. The DSA is the system that assigns dollar amounts to the services that are entered in the PCP. So you'll have your budget allowance there, and then you'll have the budget total, and then you'll have unallocated funds. So you'll see that you'll be able to see how much money you're using and how much is left over as you enter services. So Adriana, if you would just open, we won't go to the instructions, that's just kind of there for if you want to look at it at another time. But if you open the SDS budget sheet, it is an Excel document. And this is on the DDA website. We will show you in the resources. We have a slide with resources at the end so that you can also access this. It looks like, okay, there we go. Great. You can say no.
Okay, thank you.
And then are you able to zoom in at all? Do you have a bar at the bottom? I don't see one, but do you have an ability to zoom in, Adriana?
In the top middle, there's a Zoom thing.
There it is. Yeah, keep going down. Keep going down, keep going down, keep going down. You see that drop down? Yeah. Great. Okay. So, you have, this is what, this is the budget sheet. This is something that, the support broker, mostly, you know, the support broker will come to the table with a budget completed, kind of to have a sense of what services will look like. And then, you'll work with your CCS to kind of flush everything out and make sure the amount lines up. So let's just, for example, so that everyone can see how you can manipulate this. Adriana, if you will enter in the top box next to the red arrow, I know I'm making you work tonight. If you will enter, let's just say 100,000 even, we'll make it an even amount. So if your approved amount, if your approved budget amount is $100,000, and hit enter. That'll, okay. So it says, you see here, unallocated funds, $100,000, because we have not entered any services into the budget sheet yet. But Adriana has scrolled down here to personal supports. Perfect, thank you. So here this is the personal support section of the budget. This is where you would use your weekly schedule, and you'd say, okay, I need to think about what my child's weekly schedule is. How many hours of personal supports will I need each week? So let's just say there are 30 hours a week of personal supports, just for example. And maybe it's spread across 3 different staff people, because you know you have 3 different staff you'll be using for your individual. So we would have 10, 10, and 10 under the number of hours per week. Or any number, really. Yeah, that's fine. And then you would set the rate. There are different rates. DDA has different rates that we will point that out to you as a resource also, but you would set the rate that you would pay your staff. So let's just say maybe staff 1 would be paid $25 an hour. And there are 52.143 weeks in a year. So you would, and you know, if you wanted that staff to work all weeks of the year, you would put 52.143. And so you see when she did that, it on the right-hand side, the budget total is populating. So it's giving you a total cost to be paying that amount. And now at the very top, you now see under SDS budget total is about $35,000, and you have $64,000 of unallocated funds. So there are many other areas of the budget that I won't go through tonight, but that gives you a sense of how it works, how you would enter the services, and how you would work with your allocated amount. So we can go back to, thank you, and we can go to the next slide. Okay. It used to be that you would submit timesheets. You would submit, whether it was electronically or by paper, you would submit timesheets for your time worked, and your staff would do that to submit to DDA for payment. Now there is something called EVV, Electronic Verification System, Electronic Visit Verification System. The purpose is to verify that services were provided. So it has been a challenging rollout, just transitioning from the paper timesheet era to this. However, at the end of the day, it is a protection for staff and for the participant. It helps to prevent, it really just verifies that the services the staff person says that they worked were actually worked. it verifies that the individual is getting the services outlined in their PCP. Every FMS, so Adriana mentioned the FMS agency. There are 2 that you can choose from. There were 3, so if you're thinking, oh, there are 3, the third one was dropped a couple days ago. So there are 2 FMS agencies that you can choose from, and they each have their own system that they use as far as clocking hours. When you sign up with your FMS, you'll have a training, you'll get to know how, what forms, what paperwork. They are essentially your financial agency. They take care of, they collect all the tax forms from employees. They submit payment to everyone. They collect all of the application data. They do the background check data. So they are your middleman for that financial aspect of self-directed. For the most part, employees will need to access an app on their phone. There is an option for a phone call-in system that's still kind of being flushed out. So for the most part, employees are using an app to track their time on their phone when they clock into work with the individual. So employees will have access to this system to log their time. You, as the employer, will also have access to the system to take a look, verify that those services and times entered were actually worked. And a big portion, at least, since January when this was rolled out, a big portion of the support broker role was helping make sure that the EVV system could be accessed, that payment was being issued, that everyone could get into the system, and that, things were kind of clicking along there. So that is a very high level overview of how payments will be issued and time is tracked through self-directed. Next slide, please. Okay, so your plan implementation. You've got the money, you've got your staff, and you have your plan. So now what happens? You will have quarterly visits from your CCS. The CCS checks in to see how services are going. They want to know if you're spending your money, and they want to know, if you need any budget modifications. It's really a check-in. They're required to do that 4 times a year. Budget modifications, again, you can submit those at any time. So if you decide your budget isn't working for you, your plan isn't working for you, you can submit that modification. You're monitoring your spending monthly with help from your support broker. I said monthly because that's how it used to be, used to get like a monthly printout of what your budget looks like. But now with the EVV system, a benefit is that you can go on at any time and look at your budget. So you can take a look at your budget spending at any time. It doesn't have to be monthly. And continue to connect with other parents. I cannot stress that enough. I have 2 family members who are self-directed, as well as being this role, and really the importance of community and talking to other parents. There is a lot of nuance with DDA, and there is a lot of the way you word things matters, the way you can kind of finagle a lot of things. So you might talk to a parent who says, oh, I'm getting this service. And you're like, what? I tried to get that service and I didn't get that. But when you talk to parents and figure out, oh, we worded it this way, we requested it this way, you can really learn a lot. So I really encourage you all to just talk with each other, especially, with anything related to DDA, but especially in the self-directed world, to see what's happening and what another family might be doing with their services. Next slide, please. Okay. I know we are short on time. Oh wait, 7:30. Yeah, I'm going to try and not spend a long time. So there are a few, these are not all of the services that you can get under self-directed by any means. I highlighted, I believe, 3 of the main ones that may be useful for you to know about. So nursing support services. are a service within the Medicaid waivers. You are required to have nursing support services if you have a HRST score of 3 or higher. There are 2 different types of nursing services under that nursing support services umbrella. One is a nursing consultation and one is nursing case management and delegation. The difference is that nursing consultation, I highlighted, I made these colors in such a way so that you could understand how these services align with each other. So if you look at nursing consultation, this would apply if your child can manage their own healthcare, or they can direct paid staff to help with their healthcare, but they still take the responsibility, or they rely on unpaid caregivers to manage their healthcare. Whereas with nursing case management and delegation, that is where the individual, it's required if any paid staff will be administering medication. Emergency medications are an exception, Diastat, inhaler, EpiPen, things like that. But if paid staff will be administering medication, the individual is required to have nursing case management and delegation as a service in their self-directed plan and budget. Under consultation, both of these services would result in hiring an RN. The RN would complete a comprehensive nursing assessment, and they would develop a plan. Now, under the consult, it's really just kind of developing some protocols, some routines, and making sure that's communicated with staff. However, under nursing case management and delegation, this RN, the responsibility would be to train and delegate and supervise, because staff will be administering medication. So this is where the nurse is training the staff on how to do so. And so I see the question pop up in the chat, and I will touch on that. Nursing consultation, there are up to 4 visits per year. Nursing case management and delegation, a visit is required at least every 45 days. And nursing consultation, there's no delegation of medical management, no direct nursing care. However, with nursing case management and delegation, a nurse is on call for you during their work hours. I have a bullet at the bottom that says family as staff have the same requirements. So I know that touches on the question that popped up in the chat. I recognize that this is this can be a difficult area to address with families, especially, if you're a parent and you say, I've been managing my child's healthcare their entire life. I am an expert on their health. I am an expert on what they need. Why do I need to be bringing someone else in to do this for me? Why do I need to be quote unquote trained when I have 21 years worth of training? I understand that. I empathize with that greatly. The best answer that I can give is that with Medicaid services and Medicaid funding come Medicaid rules. And in order to get this money and get money and funding for these services, we have to follow these rules. Now, some families talk about, oh, I'll just clock out when it's time to give my child their medication. Technically, you would be following, protocol, like you could do that. However, you can also get in pretty big trouble for doing that, should it be found out. So I'm sharing that with you just to understand kind of the stipulations of what you're working with. And to also encourage you to know that a nurse can be a vital member to your team. It doesn't have to be, oh, here's this nurse coming in who thinks they know everything about my kid when I'm the one who knows. they really can be someone who becomes a vital member to your team, especially if they are specialized in working with individuals who are self-directed. They can really provide some vital information. So nursing support services, there's more involved, but that is an overview of those. Next slide. Personal supports assist the participant with acquiring and building skills necessary to maximize their personal independence. So really big definition there, really wide range. Typically, this used to be provided in the home. In a traditional day agency model, this was provided in a building. Many agencies no longer have the physical building. So, and with self-directed, we're not, hopefully you don't want your child always at home. You want them to be able to engage in the community. So personal supports can apply to in-home skills development, but can also apply to community integration. And if you are documenting that you are providing support with personal care or activities of daily living while in the community, that is considered personal supports. You can get up to 82 hours a week of personal support hours unless more is approved by DDA. Personal supports enhanced, I put that bullet in there for individuals who have a HERS score of 4 or higher and have an approved behavior plan. Personal supports enhanced just means that your staff will be paid a higher rate if that is the service. Next slide. And behavior supports. I think hopefully this is my last slide. Behavior supports are another service. So it may include a behavior assessment. The behavior assessment would entail collecting, reviewing data, and if needed, developing a behavior plan. The behavior plan would address the function of the behavior and develop positive behavior supports, much like the behavior assessments and plans that you would see developed within MCPS. You could also have a behavior consultation. In this service, the behavior plan would be monitored. You would receive ongoing education and assessment in order to implement the plan. And or you may have brief support implementation services, which are time limited, but would provide direct assistance in modeling to the team as far as how to implement the behavior plan. Next slide. Okay, environmental modifications. This is another service that may be useful to hear about. These are physical modifications to the participant's home. Anything that can promote independence or create a safer or healthier environment for the person can be submitted in your budget. There is a process for doing it that I won't get into tonight, but some examples, grab bars, ramps, adaptations to your doorways, accessibility in various areas of your house are all options that can be worked with within your budget. Next slide. So here is a list of resources that there's a variety here. The first one is a link to the DDA Self Directed Services Handbook. It's in English and Spanish here. It comes directly from the DDA website. There is a DDA Self Directed Services fact sheet. It lays out, questions to ask yourself on whether or not SDS will be right for you. The MD waiver fact sheet has definitions of the different Medicaid waivers that you can access. SDAN is the Self-Directed Advocacy Network. They're fantastic. I highly recommend if you're considering self-directed services that you take a look at their information. So there is a video here, Self-Direction and the Good Life. That's a really wonderful video. And then the link to their website is also below. There's a link also to the DDA Self-Directed Services page that has all the forms. It has the budget sheet. It has the list of support brokers. It has webinars that DDA has put out. It has the rates that you would pay your staff. It has everything on there. So peruse that as well. And then lastly, one of the Facebook pages that has a lot of information of parents who are self-directing in the state of Maryland is SDS Participants in Maryland.
Thank you, Carly. Thank you, Rachel. I know that we've had a lot of information to talk about the role of a support broker in self-direction. And it is a complicated process, but know that there's so many resources out there to help you. You have a copy of this PowerPoint slide and those links are live. I'd like to now move this portion of our presentation to hear a parent's perspective, their journey for their son, Timmy, and their journey with self-direction. So I'm going to turn it over now to Shari Dexter.
Well, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. I've been listening to this whole session, and this is very impressive to hear all of this information. As I looked at the participant list tonight, I saw a lot of familiar names. I know that many of you are living this right now in terms of have started these processes, have been part of the Facebook groups or other connections. And I think it's a process that we're all learning together. Some of you have a few more years to go, but it will sneak up on you quickly. So please, 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 if your child is around 14, you may not be paying attention to this as much as you will when they start turning 18, 19, 20. But I really suggest that if your child is in their younger years, please start paying attention to this, start learning, start watching all of this, because as everybody said tonight, it is a complicated process for sure. So I also want to thank the opportunity to be able to talk to you tonight. I'm sure a lot of people could share very similar stories. Just a little bit of background. So Timmy was a Longview student, graduated last year, and is now in the self-directed program. I have to tell you that when we were leaving Longview, I felt like my heart was sinking. I felt like, what is this new world going to be like for Timmy? Are we making the right decision? You know, should we put him in a traditional program? Should we do the self-directed? We had a lot of family questions that we needed to ask to make sure that Timmy was going to be happy and be able to really thrive in whatever environment he was in next. So we took all the steps that probably all of you are going through right now. We sat down, had long conversations with Adriana. I don't even know how many emails and phone conversations back and forth we had about which one or how does this work and what does this mean, etc. We did the tours. A lot of them were online for the different centers that were available. And then we had, my husband and I had a very long discussion about, well, what if we did self-directed? What exactly would that look like? For us, we were very, very fortunate. My husband worked for MCPS as a paraeducator, and we found out it worked out that he could retire and actually become Timmy's full-time staff. So for us, it just seemed like the right decision based on things that we had learned, that we would try the self-directed program and see if this worked out. And if it doesn't work out, then we'll figure out how to change gears down the road. So let me just go into a little bit. Adriana, if you don't mind going to the next slide, that would be great. So what did we learn? So as I just mentioned, is to really know the choices and to make the best decision for your child and for your family. I will tell you that self-directed takes a lot of time to figure out. I mean, you're learning, you're reading about all of this now, but to live this process takes a lot of time. And for those of you who think that, okay, well, I'll just turn it over to the support broker, or I'll have Adriana or Carly or somebody else help me, you are a big partner in this process. You need to make sure that you have the commitment that you're going to be able to do the research to really understand who are the right people for your team, and to make sure you know what your own responsibilities are. So you can't just turn everything over and, snap your fingers and everything's going to be great. If you want the best thing for your child, you intimately have to be involved. The second thing I want to say is that you can change course if your first choice didn't go as planned, or if your second choice didn't go as planned. But as it was said earlier on, you need to make sure that there's time to do so, because again, these things don't happen overnight. There's paperwork that needs to be filed. There's planning that needs to be done. So if you want to try self-directed and, see if that works out for you, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, traditional may be a better option, but then you have to see if there's availability and visit and talk to people, and again, file paperwork and budgets. So it's not an overnight decision. It's probably several months leading into that. There is a lot getting thrown at you tonight, and there was a lot getting thrown at you in the past, and there'll be a lot more getting thrown at you. So this is like the land of confusion, I have to say. And even listening to all this tonight, I was like, oh my gosh, did I check the box? Did I do all the things that have been suggested tonight? It really is hard to make sense of it until you start doing it. So don't feel like you have to understand all this. You may have to watch this presentation like 6 times to really start answering or asking the right questions. So know that there is a lot of resources out there, but this system is complicated. So know that you're not alone in this process. And then, as I mentioned, ask a lot of questions to ask for help. Next slide. So let me tell you about our experience. So there's Timmy, that was taken last year. As you see in the headline there, it says Timmy as the boss. And when I think about this process of self-direction, one of the things, I guess I really didn't realize it as I was going through it, but one of the things as I was filling out the forms, they said, we need to get Timmy a tax ID number. And I thought, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense. But really, when you start to think about this, this is like Timmy Inc. This is like having your own business. And I'm not trying to belittle, your child, or like, in terms of putting somebody on the same playing field as a business, your child, etc. But this is essentially how it's run. It's like you have a small business that you're running, that you need to make sure that you have money to fund it, that you have the right people that are going to be providing the services. You have procedures, you have tracking, you have activities, you have some kind of accountability. So it may be a better framework when you're thinking about all of this. You maybe should think about that your child is going to be your business, and everything that is going to be around that child is going to be everything to support the business. So for us, Timmy is the boss. Timmy is the one with the tax ID number. Timmy is the one who's getting the budget. And every service that Timmy has, everybody works for Timmy. And I'm not even paid staff, but I work for Timmy too. So next slide, please. So let me tell you a little bit about who works for Timmy. Some of this was mentioned already. So currently Timmy has 2 employees. As I mentioned, he's got Dad, my husband Tim, works for him. And we've also hired his Nana, who is Tim's mother, or Timmy's grandmother. Those are his 2 main employees that work with him pretty much every single day in some kind of capacity. These are the people who make sure that Timmy gets his medication, that Timmy goes out into the community, that Timmy is taken care of, that he is moved around, that he is fed, that he is changed, that he is showered, etc., etc. So these are the people that really take care of him day to day. Not all of the time that they take care of him are paid by DDA. There are hours that are officially on the clock, and there are hours that they are officially not on the clock. The budget that Timmy has that was allocated by DDA has 1 person at a time who is paid to take care of Timmy. Again, not 24 hours. I don't have a budget to support Tim or Mary. Plus, there's a limited amount of time that each person can work each day to support Timmy. Now, my understanding was that the hours were a little bit different during COVID, but now that we're not in COVID anymore, it's basically back, and Carly and could correct me on this, but it's basically about an 8-hour day that somebody could work. So what, similar to a very traditional job that everybody else would have.
Yeah.
Other people that work for him, with him, again, I'm not on the clock. I consider myself human resources. In my household, I'm called HR. And that is because I'm the one who does all the paperwork behind the scenes. I really am in charge of making sure that whatever is requested from our CCS, whatever is requested from the nursing, whatever is requested of our support broker, vendors, the ARC, that I get all of those materials together and to make sure that they're filled out properly so that they can do their part to process them. So my job, aside from my day job that I have and my family job, my HR job is now a new real job. Even again, I'm not being paid for it, but it does take up a considerable amount of time. Coordinator of community support, we use Mars. One thing that wasn't mentioned tonight, and I'm sure that other families have probably experienced this, especially because of COVID, you know, people's lifestyles have changed of what they want to do. There has been a lot of turnover. I will tell you, since Timmy started with Mars in his late teens, we've had, I believe, 5 CCSs. And in the past year alone, we've had 3 to 4, depending on what time frame you count that from. So know that while you're in the process of trying to file all of these different papers, get the PCP done, the budget done, any modifications, etc., I've had turnover in staff at Mars, and then it's starting at square one, trying to learn who Timmy is and what this business is. For my support broker, I am now on my 3rd support broker in the past year. So I'm not trying to scare anybody with this process, but I do want everybody to know it's very real that there's turnover. And it's very real that you will have to start from square one to make sure that everything is filed and done. That's why I'm saying you have to make time to intimately be involved and just feel like you're not turning it over to somebody else. You have to have a stake in the process. Our delegating nurse is exactly what Carly explained to you. I will say, as far as the certification, since Timmy does take medication, I became a CMT. Tim is a CMT. Mary is a CMT as well. I will tell you off the record, it is a pain in the neck. There are forms that need to be filled out. If for anybody who does nursing like Holly, you'll be familiar with a form called the MAR, which you basically track medications on. That needs to be filled out on a regular basis. That is a pain in the neck to fill out. It's easy, but it's a pain in the neck that you have to do it, especially when you're used to giving meds on a regular basis, but it is required. So the big thing is that you do want to stay in compliance. So even though I'm saying that these things can be a pain in the neck, they are required. You do need to do them. Also, when it talks about a delegating nurse, that is in consultation to help you, the CMT, with making sure that you're managing the medication process correctly. So that is not to have a nurse be on site with Timmy for them to give the medication. It is to supervise the people who became CMTs. And you can be a CMT. It's not a hard process, but it is a 20-hour course. For us, it costs somewhere about $400, and you do have to pass a test to do it. And then you also have to be recertified occasionally. We do use the ARC for our financial management. So those are the ones whenever I do have a new hire or any other paperwork that needs to be filled out, I do go to them very much. I personally, I know people have had problems with the ARC. I have found them very accessible and very helpful. And I will tell you again, another flag, this whole EVV system has really taken a lot of time out of the ARC and out of other people that have had to implement this. I really feel sorry actually for these people, because This has been a big transition for people who used to fill out paperwork to do timesheets and to do other processes, and now it's gone electronic, and trying to educate people has been really an uphill battle. So be patient. I guess another piece of advice that I would say to everybody, Carly gave an excellent slide about kind of timelines for PCP budget, things like that. I would suggest think about those timeframes and then multiply them by 2 or 3. Just knowing that you'll have changeover for your CCS. You may have changeover with your support broker. There may be other issues at the ARC, like implementing an EVV system. I will tell you personally, I've just had to go through a whole PCP and budget process that should have just taken a couple of months, took over a year to get done. I just got approval on a new budget for Timmy. I haven't even been able to implement it. And largely because of just a lot of other things that got caught in the pipeline that didn't make it smooth sailing. I guess the last thing I'll mention is about the activities and vendors. You really need to think about what is out there. There's a lot of things that were suggested already. Rachel did a great job of outlining a few things. If you want to go to the next slide, actually, Adriana, that would be helpful. Some of the things that Timmy does, Timmy is officially a Montgomery College student in the Challenge program. We love the Challenge program. I will tell you, the classrooms are not anything like Longview. They are traditional classrooms. The class, I sat in one the other day. It was great. It was about the Alaska wildlife. And I would say it was probably on the level of somebody in 3rd grade. They had a lot of people who were understanding of what was going on. For Timmy, they gave him a chance to participate, and we answered the questions together. We read together. We watched the videos together. There are no tests in the Challenge program. There's no papers to write. So when you say college, don't be afraid of it. I would highly recommend it, because when you're a Montgomery College student, you get access to everything at the college. Timmy also does some classes. He does an art class that's with Potomac Community Resources, or he could end up spending the day, just like you see here in the picture, that's Dad and Nana with Timmy, and that was out in Annapolis on a boat cruise. So I know we're getting short on time, and I know you all have a lot of questions, so I'll just end it right there. But I would say, please turn to other parents for advice. That Sedan, the Self-Directed Advocacy Network, has been fantastic about having information out there. The Facebook groups that are out there on the Self-Advocacy Network are good. You'll just hear parents talking back and forth. It's like Carly said, somebody will say, I got this service, or how does this work? And people will answer it. There's a lot of people who've been in the self-directed program for a long time and know the right wording. They know the right activity. And one last thing on the activities, just because you don't see it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist or can exist. The other day, Timmy and I were out at lunch at the Rio, and I walked around to 3 different places, and I asked about, can we create a program, or can we create a class for a handful of self-directed people to do something together? And they all said yes. So know that there's parents that are working on creating, whether it be one class, multiple classes, or even a hub. We're getting there. It's just going to take a little bit of time. So from my shoes, I would say, even though I have said there's challenges, we love the self-directed program. Don't be afraid. It's hard to transition, but for us, it was the right decision. So let me just leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherry, for sharing your journey, your perspective, the challenges, as well as wonderful things that Timmy has been doing since he entered self-direction and graduated from Montgomery County Public Schools to Montgomery College. We are going to honor timelines. We also have a few questions that we have in the chat. Is someone able to read the questions?
I can read the questions. The first question is, someone said, my understanding is that some of the traditional model providers are for-profit, not all are nonprofit. I don't know. I think all are nonprofit.
Yes, nonprofit,
Um,
all private. I think that's a requirement.
Yeah. Would you please go over advocacy specialist role?
Would you please go over advocacy, what special?
Advocacy specialist role. I think that was on one of the slides with the team members.
Oh, I think that's what, under the support broker, I think that role would fall under just advocating, again, like how Carly provided some examples of how to word something. So the support broker would be advocating for services. Sometimes you just, we heard today that there is negotiation between your budget and DDA and your CCS provider. So they're always advocating your CCS provider and your support brokers, should you choose to hire one. And those are, support brokers are trained by DDA. So should you choose to hire a support broker.
Adriana, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. As of July 1, support brokers are now required. Everyone is required to have a support broker as of July 1st.
Oh, it is required. Okay, that's new. Okay, well, thank you for that. But they can serve in an advocacy role for that, going back and forth between DDA and getting services.
Yes. Next question. What if the parent is an RN? Do we still have to hire out or go through all the CPR, et cetera, trainings? So if you are a parent and you're an RN, you can be hired as family as staff. I think I touched on that in the other slide, but there are some DDA, you wouldn't have to get like additional CPR training if you already have it. You don't have to do that again through DDA. You don't have to hire out if you would like to be hired as family as staff. However, there are trainings, there is a nursing training that is a DDA approved, like it's a DDA training, and that's on the training DDA website, the training calendar. So that would be something to look into. Yes, we'll be recording this session and sending it out. Can you share the names of some of the Facebook groups? There are a lot, honestly. The main one is SDS Participants of Maryland, but there's one for Frederick County. There's a smaller one for Montgomery County. But the main one, SDS Participants of Maryland.
Carly, if you don't mind me interrupting, there's also Self-Directed Parents Social Group.
Yes, so there are a bunch, and Rachel can put some in the chat too.
Yes, I put a few in the chat, and I will, even though you're in Montgomery County, it might help to join other counties to collaborate with other parents. So I'll put the other counties in the chat as well. This sounds like a lot to manage when parents are working full-time. Very intimidating. Has anyone hired someone to help with the business aspects and accounting? So the support broker will help you with several of those aspects. The FMS also takes care of the payment aspects, okay? But to be transparent, it is a heavy workload, and it can take some maneuvering to figure out what works best for your family. Like, Sherry shared that, you may have all family members who are employed. Sherry is not employed because she works, but then, she works another job, but then she helps manage the other aspects. Some families, they hire out for all of their staff, and then that frees them up to take care of kind of the logistics and other pieces that kind of fall through the cracks. So it's going to look different from everyone, but I think it's important that everybody has kind of touched on this, that you are the employer of record and you have budget authority. And
And so there is going to be involvement on your part for sure. What is the maximum hours for behavior consult? You get the behavior consult, it's billed. Every vendor is going to bill it a little differently. So I think they in the system it says like the max is 8 hours per day. Obviously, you're not going to have a behavior consult for 8 hours a day every day. So it's just gonna depend on the vendor and what's approved, and it's going to also depend on what's outlined in your behavior plan. Your behavior plan is really going to drive what your consult looks like.
Okay, we are down to 1 minute.
Okay.
We have time for one more question, but we also put an evaluation. We would like you to sign in so that we can follow up with you on the handouts and the links if you need anything. So please make sure to fill out that evaluation form. That way we'll have your email and all that information. It is after 7:30. I think we have only one more question.
Yes. I see really quick in PG County, lots of other, the resources are the same for this whole state of Maryland. So the resources that we shared, it's all for the state of Maryland. And then I see how are people who need 24-hour care handled in the SDS? How do they get supports or DSPs? That's the $1 million question. It is, you know, with 24-hour care, you're going to be allocated a certain budget amount. Okay, so there's going to be a limit on the number of personal support hours. There's a limit on the family as staff cannot work more than 40 hours a week. So there will be unpaid hours on your part as far as what natural DDA will look at that as what natural supports the person has living at home. You know, maybe they have supports from 9 to 5, just for example, and then maybe during the week and the weekends they have hours from 10 to 2. SDAN is the advocacy group that continues to work really hard on advocacy for the needs of those who are self-directed and individuals who need that 24/7 care. So it's an ongoing discussion with DDA, and there's many facets to it, but.
And again, the self-directed plan is very individualized, and that is something you're going to negotiate and work with your CCS provider and your support broker. We want to thank everybody for attending tonight, and we want to remind you that this is overwhelming and we are here to support the process. Please fill out and add in any additional questions. We'll send you additional information. There's a wealth of information to digest, to navigate, and so we have lots of links. So make sure you complete that form, which Sarah Starr has put in the chat. Thank you. And I want to thank our panel tonight for all of your personal time and for participating in this presentation. I think it was wonderful to hear about the role of the support broker and also a parent's journey.
If I could just add real quick before everybody jumps off, if anybody wants to do a parent-to-parent session, you have my contact information in the slide. Happy to set that up. We can continue the conversation. And last thing is that we are having a party that everybody is invited to at the Splash Park in Germantown on June 9th, 6 to 8, does not cost anybody anything. So if you just want to come out and visit with other parents and other people from the school system, this is a good opportunity to meet people and talk to each other. So make sure that you fill out the survey so that we have your email address and we can invite you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.